Hi everyone, welcome to the Q&A talk with director Saim Sadiq, and we are very pleased to have him and his film Joyland in the Singapore International Film Festival, and the film will be presented in the Asian Feature Film Competition, only one out of the 9 films that we are presenting this year, and it will be the Pakistani representative in our Asian lineup. So very nice to have you here, Saim. Maybe if you would like to just start off by having a little introduction and to speak to our Singapore audience about your film.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. My name is Saim Sadiq. I'm the writer, director, and co-editor of Joyland. It's just incredibly special what this film has done for me and for the entire cast and crew. So every time it's screened somewhere, it's incredibly special. So I'm just excited for this is our premiere in Singapore. Quite excited for a Singaporean audience to watch it and to hear from them if they what they liked, if they liked it, etc. So happy to be here.
Yeah, because actually I think in Singapore we do have a sizable Pakistani community. So I'm also quite excited to have people from Pakistan to actually watch your film. I would like to start off the Q&A by asking you about the adaptation, because I know this is an adaptation of the short film, Darling. So I'm curious about your starting points when you started off on this project. Was there any character that was the starting point of your inspiration when you developed the story? And we know that there are kind of 3 main characters in a way. So just which one did you identify more and which one was the source of inspiration for you?
So funnily, even though it's kind of an adaptation of Darling, but the story is very different, the characters are very different, but themes are similar, and the setting of the theater where it's set, like partially set Joyland, Darling was entirely set in that theater. But I actually had the idea for Joyland in my head at least before I did Darling. So it's a chicken and egg situation where like which one came first, you can't really tell. I think the starting point were all 3 of them. But I think I had a greater clarity about the women. I had a greater clarity about Mumtaz and Biba. They were the starting point in a way. And the guy, I knew that there was a guy in the center, but I didn't know who. I didn't know that character as well when I started writing it. What I knew of Mumtaz and I knew of Biba with a very distinct clarity from the very beginning. And it was always, the first idea was always a film about these 3 characters, and eventually it became an ensemble film with about like even other characters around them. But yeah, these 2 women were like the most important for me to start off with, and even though like the main central protagonist is the guy. It took a while to figure out.
So how did Haider, the character, how did you develop him eventually? Like, was it any source of real life inspiration for?
That was always there. That was always there because I knew that a lot of what he was going through had to do with sort of his issues with his own masculinity and his issues with his father, and his sort of inability to stand up for what he would want in life. But that stuff I still had figured out, but I do feel even though Darling is not about him at all and doesn't even feature, but somehow that film, like making that short film, helped me explore Heather in my head while I was at the theater and while I was sort of shooting the film and editing the short film. Somehow that process unlocked Heather's character for me and on a deeper level. So I do feel the short film helped a lot there. Apart from my own sort of personal experiences, because it's not like his story or his character is me or is inspired by any real person that I know. It's not. But emotionally, yes, there is a relevance that I share that I'm sure a bunch of other men around me share, and I have perhaps borrowed from them in a certain way.
Yeah, I think speaking about emotions, so I also wanted to ask you about the title Joyland, which I'm sure can be interpreted in many ways. But maybe my question is, would you be able to explain a bit, especially people who are not so familiar with Pakistan, about the complexities of joy living in Pakistan? And especially through a film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the title, there's an actual theme park, amusement park called Joyland, which is in the film, but it's an actual park. In
Right.
reality, it's also called Joyland. And
Yeah.
it's been there since the 70s. And I've grown up going to that park. And I remember from my childhood
Yeah.
that as a place of literally of joy and of
Uh,
excitement and of sort of getting away from somewhere and experiencing a moment of euphoria that may not be possible in real life.
yeah.
It's almost a surreal experience going there, and I think it is was so for me, and it's certainly so for some of the characters.
Mm,
Not all of them, but two of them who actually go to the theme park, Mumtaz and Ruchi.
yeah.
And um, the complexities of experiencing joy, I think I perhaps will explain better in the film than I could myself, because it's hard to verbalize it. It's not like it's not present, and it's not like that, oh, everybody's suffering all the time. That's not true.
Yeah.
You do find it's a very bipolar sort of existence where you do find a certain comfort, um, a certain sort of embrace in the tradition that you live
Mm,
in the family system that you live in. It does provide you certain things which are important, um, which are good for you.
yeah.
It's not a black and white situation, which is why it's hard to break away from it. It's hard to sort of question that family structure, because it does give you a lot of love also.
Yeah.
It's not
Of course.
always toxic. It's not always imprisoning in a certain way.
Of
um,
course. Yeah.
and that sort of juxtaposition between, even say for example, since we're talking about Mumtaz, she does develop a very close relationship and a genuine friendship and with her sister-in-law in that
Yeah.
very space which she wants to escape. So it does give you something good,
Yeah.
which is why, and of course she has a husband who she has a lovely relationship with in that
Yeah.
household as well.
Yeah.
Which is why it's not very easy to call that space that, oh, this is such a prison for her,
Yeah.
but it also is at the same time.
Yeah.
And that sort of duality is something that it's hard. Every person has to make sense of it for themselves.
Yeah.
There's no objective sort of resolution that you can get out of it. It's very subjective for each person.
Yeah.
uh, and how much joy are they really finding in that space versus not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think for me, I was pleasantly surprised and really appreciated the fact that, for Mumtaz and for Haider, they are in a relationship, a marriage, but that just feels like friends. There's still a friendship between them, and I think that's the complexity that I thought was rare to find in some storytelling, when characterization always feels a bit more black and white and straightforward. Yours really makes things a bit more complicated, and I really liked those complexities being shown. Yeah, I think, and also talking about that, about maybe the complexities about making the film in Pakistan. Maybe if you can share with us if there are any difficulties you face when shooting this in Lahore, right on location, and also just to get this film made and distributed. Were there any difficulties you would like to share?
Well, funnily enough, I mean, because there's not a big industry, it's a small industry, and it's a very commercially oriented industry. So it was, I would say there were certain challenges, but they were never, especially in the production and pre-production phase, they were more technical in nature. So they were always, it felt like you could overcome them, because it was also my first film. So I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people who were working on the film, it was their first feature film, because it was mine too.
Yeah.
Um, and funnily enough, the production went really smoothly, really, really smoothly.
Mm,
We didn't have almost any real big issues that we had, that you could know, that I remember right now. um, and it was because we got a crew and a cast that was so dedicated to the film, that was
mm,
so dedicated on putting themselves, and like more and more of themselves, their time, their effort, their emotional sort of might behind every scene, that I
yeah.
didn't there was no struggle really. It was
Mm,
quite an enjoyable process to shoot the film,
yeah.
actually. um, but and until the film was finished, it was, of course, it was quite breezy. And we were thinking that, oh, it's a first film for me, for my lead producer, even Apurva, for a lot of the actors, the three leads, it's their first film. and
Yeah.
it felt too good to be true. But then, of course, when we were about to release the film in Pakistan, we of course faced this bad situation,
Yeah.
able to overturn, but not in the whole country, in half the country. We're still actively right now fighting to undo it in the rest of the country,
Yeah.
which is the biggest sort of cinema going population, and which is Punjab, where the film is actually set. It's not screening there right now, even though the film released on 18th of November
Yeah.
in the rest of
Yeah.
the country. But where it's shot and where the story is about, that state that hasn't released the film yet. So it's a
Right.
strange, sad, euphoric sort of situation, because we were able to overcome the problem of the ban, but only half of it. So we're grateful for that, but you're not, we're still, it's an ongoing fight. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's been sort of perhaps the biggest problem that we faced, and it just happened 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
much after the film was actually made.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about your collaboration with Alina Khan. I think which is something quite interesting to me because she is a real transgendered actress, and I'm quite curious to find out about the research that you did as a writer director, especially with this transgender character, and also the transgender character playing an erotic dancer. There are few things here to kind of unpack. So I'm just wondering what kind of preparations you did to research and develop the character, and was there anything you understood more or changed after doing a bit more research to this character? Mm.
Oh, certainly. I mean, I read. I mean, I initially, when I started, before I did the first draft, so I did like about 17 drafts of the script
Yeah.
from the first day I started writing it till we shot it, within the like 6.5, 7 years that we took to make the film.
Yeah.
So, but before I started writing it, I always do this for almost every character, but in particular for this character in this film, I had to read everything that was already done, to watch
Yeah.
everything that was like whatever the 2-3 documentaries that have been made, Pakistan documentaries and a couple of Indian documentaries, then whatever sort of research paper, just to understand things that may not even figure in the film, but just to
Mm.
get a holistic picture of what their life, what their issues, what their sort of joys, or what is it like, just to
Yeah.
understand them in every which way, academically, and emotionally speaking. Of course, then we had an association with the Khwaja Sara Society, which is a transgender rights organization in Lahore.
Yeah.
Uh, that's how we found Alina also, and that's how we found
Mm.
all the other sort of trans actresses who are in the film, in the couple of scenes that they're there,
Yeah.
in this where Alina Biba's at her house.
Yeah.
And we had a consultant from them, Moon, who read the script, and of course I would just go there and I would just spend time with these people and
Yeah.
talk to as many of them as possible in a friendly way, not with any specific thing in mind, but just to make make them normal.
Yeah.
For me, the way talking to a boy or a girl would be normal for me, and knowing, having that much knowledge about their life as a third person.
Yeah.
And then of course I would also go to these theaters, watch the show sometimes, or sometimes just get, we'd spoken to the producers of these theaters, so I would just go and sit at the backstage in some makeup room,
Yeah.
just to observe, even if the dancers weren't trans, most of them are not, obviously most of them are heterosexual cisgendered women,
Yeah.
but I would notice them and I would just see their behavior, the way they dance, the way they
Yeah.
move, the way, again, just like what's the world like,
Yeah.
and then, but of course, the biggest sort of help in writing Biba,
Mm.
even though I had a very clear sense of who she was,
Yeah.
came after Darling, because after Darling I had Alina, and I knew that Alina was going to play the part. For 3 years, I was still doing many more drafts of the film again and again, because we knew that the film's shooting was still, because we didn't have the money yet. So I had her as the best resource, even though her character,
Yeah.
her own persona is very, very different from Biba's character. She's not like Biba at all.
Okay. Yeah.
She's very, very sweet, very submissive as a person, Alina. And Biba
Yeah.
is not like that. She's very brash, very abrasive. And Alina is the most well-mannered person I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
But so I could take care of the character, and she could see that, yeah, I know girls like this. And I'm like, okay, great. You're not one, but you know them.
Yeah.
But also just understanding the world and understanding, okay, emotionally speaking, you've been through this, so how would you react, even if you as yourself, and then how would you react as Biba? So just sort of filling certain gaps, she helped a lot, and she was like a constant sort of resource for me.
Yeah.
That I could call and ask her any questions while writing a scene. On set, of course, she had full leeway to change some of her dialogues to make it more her own, to make it more colloquial, because the lingo is a bit different for, the way they speak Punjabi. The trans people, it's
Yeah.
different for how we speak Punjabi. Some certain things are different and more
Right.
specific.
Right.
So she had leeway to do all of those things to make her character almost,
Yeah.
very much hers. Eventually, I think that today I just look at her and I'm like, okay, I don't know how I would make this film if it wasn't for Alina.
Yeah.
There are no trans actors in the country. She's
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is very fruitful collaboration. I think I felt it come through on screen. Like you really felt like she really could exercise, and you could tell that of course she assumes she is transgendered, so it's easy to see her assuming that character and playing a very rounded version of Biba. Yeah. I have one last question. I think it's about, of course, Joyland has received so many accolades, being the first Pakistani film, winning the jury prize at Rooms Within Regard in Cannes, and the Queer Palm, and, of course, the Oscar nomination representing Pakistan. So it has been billed as like, the representative film of Pakistan, at least this year. What do you feel about that, especially, the tensions of, the themes that you're dealing with in Joyland that is still pretty taboo in Pakistan, and now representing Pakistan on the so-called international stage? How did you kind of negotiate this tension? And I guess what do you hope you can, kind of get out of this international stage experience with Joyland representing your country? Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I have thought about it a lot, subconsciously speaking, because I remember when we went to Cannes, it was a lot of the whole sort of before anybody saw the film.
Yeah.
Any press that I did or anyone that I spoke to, they would only talk to me that, oh, the first Pakistani film at Cannes, and I'm like, it was so confusing for me that the film that I really made for my selfish reasons, I made it because I wanted to make this film personally.
Yeah.
And I am a Pakistani, that's true. But
Yeah.
I didn't make this to represent Pakistan anywhere. It's not. I'm not like a football player. You know what I mean? I'm a filmmaker. So I made my film, and suddenly the film's identity became so Pakistani. And it took a while to sort of, when the film screened and then screened in Cannes and then TIFF and all, so then enough people had seen it and reviews had come out that then the film sort of started getting its own identity. Before that, it was just the first Pakistani film to go here or there, etc. Which was nice, but it was also very confusing because I knew that Pakistan it's not like the majority of the country is gonna be very for this film.
Yeah.
But when of course we went to Cannes, the country was celebrating, and there was a lot of appreciation. Again, it felt like I was a cricket player or a football player. That's how the country sort of rallied behind us when we won the jury prize.
Yeah.
But how I negotiated, it's two things. One, the fact that this is not perhaps the most mainstream narrative to have come out of Pakistan, and these are not things that perhaps the majority would want to talk about, and yet the film's identity becomes so Pakistani, makes me happy. It makes me happy because I'm like, oh, there is no copyright to, you have to sort of subscribe to the majority views. Be considered Pakistani. I'm like, this is the most Pakistani film ever made in a way. If you look at it globally. And it may not be what you think, but yes. So I am as Pakistani. So what I think matters equally to what, even if that thought process or that film or that story may not be the majority view of things, right? It matters what this film has to say. It matters in the context of it being Pakistani. And that makes me happy because a lot of hate that the film has gotten from Pakistan, some of it, there's been a lot of love, but there's been hate, frankly, as well, and a lot of it is go somewhere else. Go, if you want to make this film, don't leave Pakistan and go somewhere else. So I'm like, no, I've done the most Pakistani film ever. I can't really Pakistan if you want to. So in that sense, it makes me happy. But on the other hand, I don't know if if it's a, again, with the Oscars or everything, of course, again, it's uh, I don't have any expectation of what I want to achieve out of things like these. I'm very clear on what I want to achieve out of a film, but
Yeah.
out of the other things, I don't know. It'll happen, and what will happen, I don't know. I hope that does good things for me as a
Sure.
filmmaker, for my career. Frankly,
Yeah.
I hope it does good things for the other people who worked on the film. I hope it does
Yeah.
good things for Pakistani cinema. That
Yeah.
it brings in more investment into the country. It
Yeah.
brings in, like a wider range of films being sort of considered as worthy of being made.
Yeah.
I hope it opens those doors.
Yeah.
But I can't say that I'm not expecting anything out of anything. Frankly,
Yeah.
my journey ends with like somebody watches my film and I ask them what they thought, and I discuss with them, and that's what makes me the most happy. That's what I'm most sort of interested in. And the other things, I just wait and see what they do.
And you can't really control it, So
No, you can't, right?
yeah, yeah. I think lastly, just to end this off, the film. Do you have anything you want to share with our local audience, the Singapore audience? What you hope they can take out of this film? Yeah, Joyland.
Um, I mean, yes and no. I don't want to dictate what anybody takes out of a film, because I think, especially with this film, I've realized that different people take different things out of it. There's a similar emotional experience, but then different people sort of resonate with the different character. They understand certain things differently, and I like that. I think it's a
Yeah.
good thing
Yeah.
to have that subjective relationship with a cinematic work for every person. That it means a different thing to every person. I like that a lot. Um, and so no, but yeah, I think largely I just wanted it to. The nicest thing about this film has been that I hope the people in Singapore also felt the same way, that it has made a certain section of audiences feel seen, but at the same time, for other audiences, has managed to perhaps foster some introspection and empathy for the other. And that other could be anyone. That other could be me as the liberal guy, and the other is the most conservative patriarch father.
Yeah.
I need to have empathy for that guy, for that person,
Yeah.
for us to sort of learn how to coexist a little bit better, because we are sort of
Yeah.
getting better perhaps in everything, but we do not know how to coexist anymore. From when
Yeah.
I was young till today, when I'm like 31 years old, I think just coexistence has become a much more harder thing to do with people who don't agree with us. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's become like it takes so much energy out of just coexisting with people who don't think exactly the same way as you do.
Yeah.
Or who are not like you. And I hope that the film is able to, in a very, very small way, move the needle in that direction.
Yeah.
It can't change anything. It's a movie. But I hope that it allows us to, I don't know, just look at other people with more understanding.
Well, maybe it can change something. Who knows? I mean, just to push the needle a bit, right? I mean, I think that's
Yeah, a bit.
yeah,
I'm very happy with that.
yeah. I think with that, really, thank you for having this conversation with me, Saim. And well, I hope this local audience liked it. I'm sure they'll like it. And good luck for our Asian feature film competition. We'll let you know again. Yeah. Thank you so much. And yep, this is the conversation with Saim Sadiq, director of Joyland. And thank you everyone for watching this video. Thank you.